All right. I'm not big on talking about people or their situations unless it has important relevance to what we're trying to do here on my channel, which is help you improve your mindset and have better relationships with women and dating and all of that sort of thing, right? So, in going over this whole Andrew Tate thing, it's not because I want to jump on talking about another person, but there's some really important lessons here. If you're a guy who dates women, his relationships with women, works with women, or is in any kind of work capacity where women are involved, this is exactly what you need to hear. And we're going to get into it. All right, here we are. Let's get into this. Another um, Apex Intergame episode. Yes, we are going to explore the Andrew Tate allegations, charges, and he's been officially charged. It's been a while. And we're going to talk about what this means for you, though, how this impacts your life. Because, again, I don't care about gossip. I don't care about getting into somebody's business, right? And, people do things, whether mistakes are made, whether they're mistakes weren't made, whatever. Like, everybody's a human being. And so I'm not here to like judge other people by things that they do or their mistakes. But that said, there's some important things you need to understand about navigating both the sexual marketplace and just navigating the world today in 2023. And you have to calibrate yourself to what's happening so you don't find yourself getting into a problem or getting into trouble. Most of you guys have situations where you work with women, where you have female clients, where you have, interactions with women in the dating market. Okay. Something like that fits what you're doing. Right. Well, if you are going into those situations with an old paradigm, even like a 15 to 20 year ago kind of a paradigm or mindset, you can find yourself into a problem and getting yourself in trouble. All right. And so that's what we're going to explore some things about that. Now, first of all, and also, if you guys like what I'm doing, just jam that like button. It does help me quite a bit. All right. And any questions you have, throw them in the chat. A super chat of some sort will help me with the algorithms and I'll ensure that I answer your questions. Now, I posted something. See, because I'm not a legal expert. Okay. Just FYI, I'm not an attorney. All right. But, when I look at a definition of something, I think of a certain thing about what that is. All right. And most people get an image of what that is when they hear a certain word, for example. And that's not always what it means when we're talking about a legal definition. All right. And that's really important and something you need to be careful of. So, like, when I think trafficking, I'm going to read you a story or a little excerpt that came across my desk, my computer screen. To me, I'm going to read this story. This to me is what sex trafficking looks like. Okay. All right. So the title of it was Migrants Are Hunting Women in Greece. 27-year-old Polish woman Anastasia Rubinska was drugged, kidnapped, handcuffed, raped, say it, and strangled by a Bangladeshi Muslim migrant on the Greek island of Kos. Media reports she was possibly gang raped before Salahuddin S. dismembered her naked body, stuffed her inside a bag, and hid Anastasia's body beneath a brush. Police have revealed that she was forced to send reassuring messages to her boyfriend of 13 years just before being brutally tortured. Now, in shocking revelation, a 30-year-old woman named Maria has come forward, exposing an alarming situation on the island. She reports that an organized group of migrant men are preying on young women, citing her own narrow escape from a potential assault. Maria disclosed that near where the body of Anastasia was discovered, an individual connected to the murder investigation had attempted to grape her. Disturbingly, she warns of a pervasive issue on the Greek island, referring to migrant men as hunting women. Maria recounted her harrowing experience from early June, revealing that her drink was spiked during a night out, rendering her body immobile while her mind remained alert. Fortunately, she managed to escape the Pakistani man's assault and avoid the tragic fate suffered by Anastasia. Maria accused the local police of being unresponsive to her pleas for help. Consequently, she has left the island and returned to her hometown seeking safety. What concrete measure? Yeah, it's just a whole, what concrete measures is your government taking thing? Okay. So that is pretty terrible. All right. I mean, that's horrifying. You know, that statement and account of what happened is what happens to young women all over the world, all of the time, every day. You know, in the United States, like I'm in Michigan. Michigan is one of the most heavily trafficked places for young women because of the border, you know, the Canadian border, particularly, where women are kind of taken into the United States through Canada. I guess that's what I've been told by my law enforcement friends. And women are trafficked and forced into a situation of sexual slavery. There are women that are out doing whatever girls do on a Friday, Saturday night, getting their drinks spiked and getting thrown in cars, getting drugged, getting then hooked on drugs and kept as prisoners and assaulted and coerced and brainwashed into, you know, sexual slavery, right? And this is happening all over the place. This happens to minors. This happens to adults. To me, that's what sex trafficking is. If someone tells me that there's a sex trafficking thing going on, that is the image I get in my head of what that is. Okay. Now, I'm a little biased because I have friends that I respect, some people I respect who worked with Andrew Tate and his brother in their war room, and, you know, are kind of pretty close to those guys. And they say that they're good human beings, you know, that they're not these bad people. So I'm a little biased because I'm going to go based on what my personal friends are going to tell me, not what the media and what other stuff is going to say. Right. So I have a bias, all right, in favor of both of the Tate brothers. That doesn't mean I agree with everything they do. It doesn't mean I agree with everything they say. All right. Despite their genius internet marketing, all right, of being able to have massive egos on the internet. And, you know, some of it can be pretty comical, actually. They're human beings. All right. And human beings are not perfect. They're flawed. And that's me. That's you. That's everybody. All right. So that's my stance on them. There's a little bit of a positive bias that I have, but I mean, I'm not going to support somebody. I wouldn't like support or even be in favor or even say anything favorable about somebody who is doing some trafficking, like the story I just read, right? Where girls are being coerced into, and I say coerced, it's not even the right word. It's really being enslaved, right? Through violence, threatened death, and sometimes death happening. To send, you know, this one particular girl was dismembered. You know what I mean? This is just horrifying. And there are people out there that have done horrifying things. And I personally have been on the other side of fighting people who do these horrifying things out in the Middle East. All right. I've done several deployments, and some of the people we're fighting are exactly the type of people who would do these sorts of things to women. And it's actually disheartening when I would leave an area that we were working on we'd withdraw, leave it to their native governments, and then ISIS or whoever would take over. And I would know for a fact that the young girls who were formerly protected by what we were doing and by the local, families and authorities there were now subject to sexual slavery and being dismembered, being abused, being killed. When people want to talk about like misogyny, especially the wokies here in the United States, all right, and the idiots, okay, want to blame me for being a misogynist or want to blame Andrew Tate for being a misogynist. I'm sorry, you don't know the definition of the word, because there are people that are actual misogynists dismembering women, enslaving them, right? There are people out there that are doing that. Those are the misogynists, not some guy who's collecting Bugattis and telling you that he's better than you because he has more money. Okay, that's not a misogynist by my definition. That's not a sex trafficker by my definition. All right. But what we run into is the problem of governments and of the system. Okay. And this is where you need to sort of learn some things to navigate this, because here's where you can get yourself in trouble. All right. Because there's masses of people who do shitty in life. And if you're a masculine person, and if you're somebody who wants to do well, they don't want that for you. Okay. They want to look for a reason to demonize you. They want to look for a reason to make you out to be the bad person. Okay. Andrew Tate and his brother just represent that masculine alpha male that all of these other people who are against masculinity in general, okay, they want it. It's the avatar of that person they want to take down. And that's why there's public support on at least one side of the aisle to want to see these guys as these horrible people. And then, of course, there's these other people, right? The sides of people who really aren't against masculinity, who tend to be like, well, wait a second. Some of the things that the guy says make sense. Like, I don't understand where all the hate's coming from. Well, the hate is coming from hating men, hating masculinity, and basically promoting a cartoon of masculinity so that, we can make that the source or the root of all evil. It's what people do who are not successful and not doing well in life. Okay. Instead of working on their own problems, they want to blame things. They want to focus on some greater worldly problem that they get to make as the scapegoat for why they're not doing better. And it's more fulfilling for the dopamine areas of their brain and more ego protecting to focus on something you can't change and make that the scapegoat. For the incels out there, it's women become the scapegoat. They're not having relationships with them. They're not having good experiences with them. So women become the scapegoat, right? And women this, women that. That's where you get some of the negative things against women. For some women, it's men become the scapegoat, right? Your feminist types who are not pretty much anti-male, right? They all sides of it will claim that they're not anti this, but they are. Right. And it's because they get to focus on some greater thing that allows them to protect themselves from their own accountability and personal responsibility. You're going to hear a theme here on accountability. Right. We got, people who focus heavily on politics who aren't politicians. All right. Who aren't and who get triggered and angry and spend large parts of their day just having internet discussions about things like that. They're just escaping, right, their problems. And so don't escape your problems. That's the first piece of actionable advice here. Focusing on things outside of yourself to make them a scapegoat. This is the villain or the demon, and this is the reason why my life's not going better, and then you get to protect yourself. Isn't that nice? You get to pretend that you're not the problem. why you're not making more money, why you're not having better relationships, why you're not having better friendships, why you're not doing cooler shit, while you're dealing with drugs and alcohol addictions and other problems. You can look at everybody else instead of looking at yourself. And so that's what a lot of people do. And the Tates become the avatar for that. But guess what? Why does that affect you? You're going to say, guy listening to my thing right now. Why does it affect you? Because you're just another representation of that. Do you have a penis? Are you a male? Are you a dominant alpha sort of type of a person in your social circles? You become the cartoon version, you become the Andrew Tate of your circles and their brains. And they're going to have a bunch of negative stereotypes, perceptions, and a bunch of things. And if you do something wrong, they're going to come after you, okay? Because you're a dude and because you have masculine traits and qualities. These people who come after these guys, they don't know who they are personally. I don't really either. I haven't hung out with them for a good amount of time to know any of that. Like, I'd have to hang out with somebody for a little bit to really know how they are. But people that I have hung out with and respect say that they're pretty good people, Now, there could be deception and lies here. Maybe there's things I don't know, right? But word I got is that they're good dudes. So, it's a lot different when you get off the internet and spend time with somebody face to face. Okay. What you're looking at is an avatar of a human being, an internet image. All right. Which is great for marketing, but it's an image for people to demonize. Understand that in your circles, you become that image. You're the person that they're going to demonize. All right. Now, into trafficking, based on the story I read, is there any evidence of the Tates trafficking? I haven't seen it. Is there any evidence of them drugging girls, keeping them prisoner where they weren't free to go? Violent abuse and coercion. There seems to be no evidence of that. If there were, it would be all over CNN, because these people want to take these guys down, but they were kept without evidence, just under investigation rather, for 3 months. And now there's some allegations. We'll get into that, but don't you think if there was some evidence that it would be all over the media so that there would be more media support to put these guys away, more public support? You bet your ass, but there's not. So what are we looking at then with some sort of trafficking charges, right? And so for me, though, and this gets into the issue, the real issue, that what powers do, powers will expand the definition of a word that has meaning in society, and they'll expand that definition in a legal sense so that they can have power and control over other people. A great example of that would be the word abuse. Okay. I know I didn't have it prepared. Let's look up, what does abuse mean? Abuse definition. All right. Abuse. Treat a person or an animal with cruelty or violence, especially regularly or repeatedly. Okay. That is what the definition of abuse is. Cruelty or violence. Okay. Well, we've expanded that definition. Look how often the word abuse is thrown around in just talking about relationships in general. Where we look at how, a divisive argument where, let's say, a guy acts like an asshole, raises his voice. He's now abusive, according to what's being popularized as a definition. When a girl does something similar, she could be characterized as abusive. If a girl is manipulative, she's now characterized as abusive. Okay. We are overusing the word abuse. Why? Because we're in an internet culture now where the most extreme shit gets all of the attention. So If you just say, well, this person raised their voice and they really weren't behaving appropriately, that's not getting enough attention, right? We have to say abuse. This person was being verbally abusive. All right. Now, the term verbally abusive has been around for a while, but, it's been expanded, is what I'm trying to say. And then when we get into legal definitions, we expand the definition of abuse. I had a funny story, if you guys remember hearing about it, where unfortunately, probably somebody with mental issues, mental disorder, mental problems from another country called the Michigan State Police and reported saying that I had my girlfriend captured and that she was kidnapped. Well, because of we'll say the Andrew Tate meme, not Andrew Tate the person, but the internet personality of Andrew Tate, they looked at my social media. Now, any of you guys who know my content know that I'm very specifically somebody different. Okay. I like cool shit that guys like. They like cool shit that guys like. So awesome. You know what I mean? I do the things that try to make a guy better. They promote and do things that make guys better. So there's a similarity. I don't have as much money as those guys do. They're more successful than I am, which, good on them. I don't have supercars. I do have passion for other things like, and maybe someday, but, I have things like a motorcycle and off-roading vehicle and some different things, but, I don't have all those things. I have my quiet little lifestyle here. And what I teach guys is skill sets. All right. I teach you skill sets on how to better your relationships, how to have frame in your life, how to, get your mindset in order, which, by the way, I'll make a quick announcement on that. Inner Game Healing second quarter is coming out. So stay tuned for that. That's coming up. Okay. Inner Game Healing is been a very successful program on helping guys get their inner game together. I also have my year-long Mastermind program that is, going on right now. In fact, I'll show a quick commercial on that right now, and then we'll come back with the rest of our message. Your success with women literally boils down to one thing. When you have this one thing, all of your troubles disappear and you start having amazing experiences that most men can only dream of. And that's the good news. But the bad news is, if you don't have it, nothing else will work. All of the money, good looks, advice on the internet, and all the best pickup and game skills out there will fail without you mastering this one thing. And that one thing is frame. Develop the skills in establishing and keeping frame, and everything else follows. That is the big secret. And the good news is, I can teach you all you need to know about it. The answers to ending your pain and suffering and to start living an amazing life with women is just one click away. After this video, click on the link in the description to schedule a free consult to see if you are a good fit. And then you and I could work together on finally getting you to start living the life with women that most men can only dream of. All right, so click that link. I have a Ferrari. I drive a Ferrari sometimes, but no, I don't have one. It's a little bit of maintenance right now. Michigan roads are not good for Ferraris, bro. Just FYI. But anyway, at any rate, though, yeah, that's the click the link. It's not broken now. That's cool, right? So click the link, get a free consult in. That's what I do. I help dudes have better relationships, and some women too. For some female clients come to me. So I have people have better relationships. How? Well, how to pick up and get the girl. Okay. How to go from the dating phase to letting things get a little more serious and, letting things grow into a commitment, how to set boundaries, how to vet properly, how to, keep her in your frame, right? How to communicate well, how to do well in the relationship. And for those of you guys who are struggling with breakups, I help you get over that breakup very quickly and, if you're in that no man's in between land where maybe you're breaking up, maybe not, or you just broke up, but there's still that getting back together possibility. I help you navigate that and have really the life that you'd want with women. That's what I do. It's very specific. It's skill sets. You know what I'm saying? How much of a high value man you want to be, that's up to you. What makes you happy, that's up to you. The identity you want to have for yourself, that's all up to you. I just teach you the skills. And also the mindset, inner game, and mental fitness skills. Things that are holding you back: anxiety, depression, procrastination, lack of productivity, all of those things. And that's the stuff we'll do in the inner game healing. All right. So yeah, these are the things I do. I'm not Andrew Tate. All right. They're very different things that we're doing. Okay. But a random call, back to the story, a random call from a person who doesn't know me, doesn't know my girl, from another country, making an allegation of kidnapping, which is pretty serious. All these guys had to do is go to my social media and they went, yep, he's like an Andrew Tate, I think, because he has a suit and he has a watch and he has a penis and he, does combat sports or something with combat. Reality is I train combat sports and I'm a military guy, right? Okay, he must be a misogynist and there must be something going on. And his girlfriend's attractive, so must be something going on here. And they did a full stop by and investigation. Now, interesting in investigating abuse, okay, which, and my thing was like, go ahead and come by. It's fine. I don't care, right? Because there's nothing going on here. But they pull my girl aside, pull her out. And they didn't just ask about physical abuse or are you being held against your will and stuff. Are you guys having arguments? Is there any, verbal abuse? Does he ever get, verbally abused? Like, I mean, this is what they were doing. They were asking about things that normal couples go through during conflict. Now, there's better ways of going through conflict other than yelling or raising your voice or, right. I understand that. We understand that. And I teach those skills. However, it's pretty common when two people get in an argument and they're a couple that somebody's yelling or somebody raises their voice or somebody gets upset. Those questions are being asked by police. You see what goes on? What the fuck goes on right now? This is what's happening. Okay, wake up. This is what's happening right now. Do you have a penis? You're a potential abuser, a potential sex trafficker. That is what's happening. The definition of things are being expanded to encompass anything we don't like and any message that doesn't fit our worldview so we can control people. It's tyranny. Tyranny is what's happening if we allow it. Now, let's look at, because I'm sorry, if we expand the definition of abuse to mean yelling or getting in an argument, how is a police officer supposed to know when he shows up at a house who's, right and who's wrong, who's actually being abusive, if there's abuse, or if it's just an argument, if we expand the definition of abuse into yelling and arguing? Like, my cops that listen to me, you tell me how complicated that's going to make your job if we expand the definition of abuse to mean yelling at each other. Like, what are you going to do? I mean, just throw everybody in jail. Any domestic dispute, which, by the way, is a lot of what cops respond to. Most of what cops are responding to, who are not just on the road doing traffics and stuff, most of the time police officers are getting called, it's domestic. All right. Domestic disputes are the most common things they're getting calls for. And when they show up, they don't know who's right or who's wrong. It's a big confusing thing. But yeah, if we're going to expand that definition, if we're going to pull women out and aside, does he yell at you? I mean, really? This is what's happening, Yeah, no, they're not going to like this. That's why I'm sure this will have like no views, and that's okay. Maybe you guys can help that by crushing the like button. And maybe the only way I can get away from algorithmic problems is by being so big and liked that they can't turn down the advertising dollars, or, and that's about it. That's the only way. So you guys to show that you really, really support this channel and you support, what we're talking about, having good elevated dialogues about these things by liking what my stuff, you guys got to do that work, because without it, I'm just going to be censored. All right. And that's just all there is to it, because I'm not saying things that are friendly to, the algorithms that the corporations like. All right. And that's what it is. So yeah, we're expanding definitions. Now, somebody pointed out in my Twitter, because again, I'm not a legal expert, but that deceiving girls, well, what could be considered as deceiving to get them to work for you could be considered human trafficking. So I'm thinking that trafficking is literally capturing and abusing girls. But the legal definition in some places has been and kind of worldwide legal, I think. And I don't know what he put a legal definition down, and I don't know where it's from yet. He hasn't really let me know that yet. So, but the legal definition of trafficking has been expanded. It's not, violent, basically forcing a girl to in exploiting a woman sexually against her will. That's no longer it. Trafficking is not, according to some places, exploiting a girl against her will, which assumes violence, again, coercion, drugs, things like that, right? The things that I learned was trafficking when I was looking at actually doing some work and fighting human trafficking, which I may do that, by the way, as an NGO, okay? Non-government organized efforts. I'm very, very serious. Those of you guys who follow my stuff regularly know how serious I am about not, protecting women. Okay. Like not protecting them from their own agency and their own choices, but protecting them from abuse and harm, and things happening against their will, protecting anybody who's a weaker person, children, and women particularly, who could be exploited, and all that. Right. And so, yeah, that's something I'm very much against. But legally, though, they've expanded the definition to deceiving a girl to work for you. Deceiving a girl to work for you. Well, what qualifies as deception? You see, now we start to get into a gray area. It's like taking the word abuse and taking it outside of the very clear definition of what it used to be, which was, treating someone with cruelty or violence, especially regularly or repeatedly. That was the definition of abuse. We've expanded it because we've taken the word cruelty to mean, well, he yelled at me. And here's the problem with this expansion of definition. It is used to control people that we don't like, or that you don't, like their message or their voice. That's first of all. So it's tyrannical. Okay. But the second thing is, it demeans and diminishes people who have actually been, so to use the term abuse again, women who have been abused, right? And men and children, whoever, people who have been abused through cruelty and violence, they are now diminished because we've expanded the definition to mean yelling at somebody, calling somebody a name, right? And I'm not saying yelling at someone and calling someone a name is good either, but in what context? Is there an argument? Still not good, but is it a mutual combatant situation between a couple, or is one person just berating another? Like, what are we talking about here? And there still needs to be a line between toxic arguing, for example, right? and actual abuse. To me, abuse is cruelty and physical violence, right? But legally, we're starting to expand this definition where cops can show up and ask, did he yell at you? That is diminishing to women who have getting the crap kicked out of them every single day. It's diminishing to those women. Okay. By not separating these two, it's diminishing them. And we are pushing towards removing accountability in a legal sense from women and their decisions. That's a problem too. See, I actually respect women, and I think that they should have agency and accountability for their choices. That's respecting a person, is respecting their agency and respecting their choices, which means they get the consequences of those choices too. Okay. That's how I look at it. But through the system, there's so many people who say they're supporting of women and they're feminists, meanwhile trying to remove the agency of women, which means not respecting their decisions or choices, and instead ending up in a place where they're basically giving anyone else around them a consequence for the choices that they might make, particularly men. Okay. That's really problematic. And that's where we're at in 2023. And that's what this whole, Andrew Tate fiasco highlights amongst anything else. Right. So I had to point it out again that, that they've expanded this definition, that trafficking of what I think, which is the story that I read earlier about women's being dismembered, physically captured and enslaved and sexually exploited, that whole thing, which goes around on all over the world today, and it's another thing that going on, right? Sexually exploiting women through violence. Okay. When that's going on, how is law enforcement supposed to focus on that when we've expanded the definition of sex trafficking to any woman who's deceived to work for a guy? Like, how is this law enforcement officer supposed to know when he's coming out? How are they supposed to vet out the difference? I would think as law enforcement, I would want to go after the really bad dudes who are drugging women and keeping them against their will, not the dudes who are basically running pimp game and having a webcam business. To me, that's not exactly something that I'm going to care too much about. Why? Because these women have agency. They have their own decisions. They're getting involved in the sex industry with an expectation of returns, and they're getting involved into what is naturally a divisive relationship between management and sex worker. Okay. When you get into sex work, there is a naturally divisive relationship between the management and the sex workers. Now, I'm not saying sex workers shouldn't be protected from abuse. They, of course, should be. Okay. They should be protected from actual abuse, but not protected from their own decisions and their own choices. If they make a choice to go into sex work and it doesn't pan out the way they want, they don't walk away with quite as much money as they would have liked because they don't know how to read the fucking contract or, figure out the system. Okay. That would fall if the management was divisive, let's say, or what want to say divisive, deceptive, that would fall under something other than sex trafficking. That would be a contract dispute. That would be a business dispute. That would be like going to court because your manager ripped you off out of money or something like that, right? Or made promises that he didn't deliver. That's what that would go under. Not sex trafficking, which is a non-consensual situation where women are being captured, drugged, abused, and forced into sexual exploitation. You see, there's a difference of these two things. And one is a civil matter, in my opinion, and the other one is more of a criminal one. Okay. If the Tate brothers are guilty of anything, it may be something of a civil nature where there's some deception or disagreements and the women didn't walk away with the bag that they thought they should have had, right? With what they thought they should have, been able to get from it. All right. If anything, okay, that's what that would amount to. But we know, based on lack of evidence, there is not this. Are they dismembering girls? Are they, keeping them captured in a basement or locked in a room somewhere and drugged? Are they being forced into sexual work and sexual exploitation? No, we know that that's not happening. So since that's not happening in a lot of the cases when they bust down doors, right? They got to expand the definition so that they can control people that they don't like. So the legal definition that was sent here, I'll read through some of it. Recruitment, so sex trafficking in persons. And I'm not sure. See, I'm not sure where. I'm going to hit refresh. Maybe he answered. I'm not sure where he got this. Oh, shit. Are we getting into me working a computer? It's terrible. Yeah, I'm not so sure where he got this from, and he's not. Let's see. Yeah. So, so I'm not sure which legal definition this is. I don't know if this is Romania or where this is from, but it's so I'll just read it anyway because it's kind of common in a few other places. So, trafficking in persons. What's the definition? Legal definition: recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, or receipt of persons for exploitation purposes. And then it's part A is by means of coercion, abduction, deception, or abuse of power. Okay, so far so good. I'm in agreement of the definition. By taking advantage of the inability of a person to defend him or herself, or to express his or her will, or of his or her blatant state of vulnerability. Okay, I agree, but what do we mean by blatant state of vulnerability? Is this person drugged or having a mental disorder? Or are they consenting to go do something and then later on being told that their choices that they don't have agency for their choices, right? That's where B gets a little fuzzy already because we need to determine what state of vulnerability is. It's funny that women are in a state of vulnerability because they have vaginas by some definitions. And then, of course, they're strong, independent, and powerful in the same sentence. And that's where, the system, so to speak, and sort of the woke ass system that we live in is crazy. We're in crazy land where people don't use their brains. Okay. Like women are not both strong and independent and also perpetual victims. They can't be the same thing. All right. I think really women are just people who have responsibility for their own decisions, just like men in that sense. That's what it is. Okay. So, continuing with this, shall be punishable by no less than 3 or more than 10 years of imprisonment and a ban on the exercise of certain rights. And they don't say what certain rights are. This probably is Romania, which another point of advice is don't live in a formerly communist country that has communist and socialist values and beliefs that can be easily bought off or controlled. You think that if you have power and money, that you can just buy off that government and everything will be cool until they don't like something and that your money can no longer buy you the freedom that you would like. It's better to try to go someplace where it's a little bit more principled than that. If you guys are looking at that, I mean, people want to shit all over the United States, but we still have a lot of freedoms here. We're losing them, it seems like, year after year, and we need to protect them. But we still have a lot of freedoms and rights in the United States that you don't have in other countries. And being in a place where you can buy them off may sound cool if you have the money to buy them off, but it becomes very much not cool if they decide that that money ain't worth it. All right. And if they're getting pressure from other people or other entities and the juice, it becomes a real problem. So that's problematic. Where you live is a problem. So, it's something you need to pay attention to, and you need to know the way that the system is and where you're at. I'm not saying that the Tate brothers didn't know the way of the system in Romania. I don't know. Okay. But I mean, you get locked up in the wrong place. You're running into a problem because they may not have the same, you won't have the same legal protection that you think you have, right? Potentially. So part C, by giving and receiving payments or other benefits in exchange for the consent of an individual having authority over such persons. See, that is really shady, dude, as far as definitions are concerned, right? Think about that for a second. Giving and receiving payments, right, or other benefits in exchange for the consent of an individual for having authority over you. Well, help me out, guys. Help me out here. And maybe I don't understand something because, again, I'm not an attorney. But, like, isn't it when you go and work for an employer, right? Aren't you giving them some authority over you? Aren't you consenting to them having authority over you and receipt of a payment? You know, now you can sever that relationship at any time. It doesn't say you can't walk away from it, but isn't that employment? Are they saying employment is sex trafficking? Am I dumb? I might be dumb here. Giving and receiving payments for the exchange of consent of authority, right? Isn't that what I joined the military? Was I trafficked? Was I trafficked because I joined the military by this definition? I was government property, still kind of am. All right. But don't tell them that. Don't tell anybody that. Maybe they'll kick me out. But yeah, I still am kind of, when you sign a contract, you're like government property. You're consenting to give the government or your chain of command authority over you as a person. And what you receive from that is payment or benefits. You literally sign a contract as a military person to go do that. Isn't that by definition just employment? Now, it doesn't mean you can't, you have to now be forced and you lose all physical rights and those things. No, of course not. But that's not what this says either. I mean, they just expanded the definition of trafficking to mean employment. Think about that for a minute. This little thing here expands the definition of trafficking to employment. That is like expanding the definition of abuse to an argument. Right? That's a little crazy if you ask me. That is something you should be very concerned about, because this means if you're an employer and you hire a girl to work for you, right, and you have some level of authority over her with that job and that employment, you could be, depending on the conditions, blamed for trafficking, according to this definition. Yeah, that's what we're getting into. And this is why I see all these stupid scenarios where people make these like, oh, I was trafficked. And you're like, no, you were a stripper who worked for different companies and traveled around and stripped, right? You were a sex worker. You volunteered for that. You consented to that. Like, what do you mean, dude? No, which is fine. Like, it's not even, I'm not slamming on the street. I'm not slamming on a stripper for making that choice, make good money, do your thing, but it's a consensual, contractual thing, right? How is that by definition sex trafficking? So you see what I'm saying? We have now expanded this definition, and that's what we're dealing with the Tates. It's a kangaroo clown court where we just expand definitions until it matches. Oh, you had girls working for you that consented to give you authority over them in exchange for money, which is the definition of employment. That means you sex traffic them. You're going to jail now. That is what the fuck are we dealing with here? Right now, we're going to get into was some bad things done or whatever a little bit. Maybe, I mean, I'm not gonna get into it too hard. I'm only getting into it enough to help you guys navigate the employment and workplace, the workplace today in 2023, navigate the sexual marketplace today. There's things you need to know and you need to understand. Okay. And so we're going to get into that and use some of the things that unfortunately happened to Andrew Tate and his brother as an example. Like hindsight's 2020. I'm sure there's some things they might do different. Whether they'll agree with that or not on the internet, that's another story. But yeah, so that's the definition. So number 2 here, I'll just keep reading. It's almost done. Trafficking in persons perpetuated by a public servant while fulfilling his professional duties and prerogatives shall be punishable by no less than, so this is just the penalties, punishable by no less than 5 and no more than 12 years of imprisonment. The consent of an individual who is a victim of trafficking does not represent a justifying ground. So in other words, if you can get the girl could be in agreement. This is like how crazy this is, dude. The girl could be in agreement to doing work for you. Let's say in this scenario of webcamming, okay? She's going to be a cam girl. You're going to be her manager and media marketer, right? And she could be in total agreement and consent of working for you and having this relationship, and she gets paid. She could be happy. She could go on the stand and report, these guys are the best employers I've ever had. And I've, this is an agreement. I wanted to be here. I consented to be here. They've helped me make more money than I would have make on my own. It's a good relationship, blah, blah, blah. They could have total consent to this relationship, this business relationship. By definition of this legal definition of sex trafficking here, that doesn't matter. They've removed her agency, dude. Do you understand like how crazy that is and how powerful that is and why it's so important, why you need to understand this when you navigate the world today? They will they remove the consent of women because they consider women, unless they're on Netflix, because it's apparently every story with a female hero on Netflix is kicking everybody's ass, right? So on a Netflix special or a TV show or whatever the hell, movie, all right, women are dominating right now and men are just incompetent. Okay, so women are all powerful there, okay? But in real life, when it comes to things that don't benefit them, maybe, or they don't feel that, or that go against the narrative, women are considered a vulnerable persons because they have a vagina. Ladies, I have a couple of ladies here. How do you feel about being considered a vulnerable person strictly because you have a vagina? Does that make you feel good? Does that make you feel respected? I would hate to be told I'm a vulnerable person or a bad person or a weak person or whatever it is, some sort of stereotype because I have a penis. Could you imagine how crazy that would be? Right? Insane, dude. Insane. And a lot of women right now don't even recognize that this is disrespectful to them, to their agency. Like the thing we need to protect is freedom and personal responsibility. That's the thing that United States Constitution stood for forever, right? And some of these Eastern European countries, like some of them understand what our Constitution stood for more than we do. Okay, I've gone over to Eastern Europe, and some of the soldiers and the people over there have communism fresh in their minds. They're very much against a lot of the kind of leftist propaganda, and they want to preserve freedoms. They want to preserve personal liberty, and they want to do that more than people in the United States seem to do. And they look at it's sad because they look at, I don't know how it's been, 'cause it's been a few years now, but they looked at the United States as like the model. You know what I mean? And I'm sitting here going, dude, we're screwed up right now. People don't even recognize, young people have no idea the freedoms that we've had up to this point, and they're willing to just trade them in and destroy them. They don't have any thought process to what collectivism does to a society. People in Eastern Europe understand that, but there's Eastern European governments, though, other ones that are more communist as ever in the way that they operate, more corrupt than ever too. So there's ones that are really good, ones that are not, right? I mean, it's crazy, And so, yeah. Yeah. And so, well, Sarah says, makes it so no one takes you seriously, dismissed at best. Right. Right. You know what I mean? It wouldn't make me feel great either. You know what I mean? To be told that some blanket, generalization about my weakness because of my gender, right? Or my sexual characteristics. That's incredibly crazy. But that is what they do legally. All right. And it's to control the voices and the people that don't benefit them. The reality is a sort of a more left-leaning kind of society, and I don't mean to shit on everybody who votes like Democrat, who's left. I'm not a political person, so, I don't mean to crap all over you. And I'm not saying it's not a Republican and Democrat thing. Okay. I think just bigger than that, but these, the leaning sort of into some of these ideologies, we could say more of the, the cancel culture, more of the woke culture, like getting into all of that kind of stuff, right? This collective bullying scenario that we run into. The legal system, I mean, that first of all benefits it, believe it or not, it benefits companies and benefits the internet marketplace, okay, by creating that instability. And it benefits governments because it allows them to control people, and so, man, I don't know what it is, but my eye is like watering like crazy. I think I had something spicy and maybe it went into my eye. Who knows? Well, anyway, so you have to excuse my eye rubbing, but yeah, so it's insane, dude. So that by definition, so when you hear, oh, the Tates are guilty of sex, this is the problem. You hear, oh, they're guilty of sex trafficking. You think, as well as I would think, of the actual what sex trafficking means in society, which is coercing someone and sexually exploiting them. That means violence. It means keeping them prisoner. It means drugging them or getting them addicted to drugs. It means a whole bunch of horrible shit. You know what I mean? That's what I think of. And then I go to look for this evidence of this from, the Tate brothers and their companies. And I got nothing. All right. What I see is pimp game. Okay. Well, it's not necessarily the most, I'm not going to morally grandstand. Is that a moral thing or not? It's not necessarily the greatest thing, but you know what? It's not, women are still, these women and these girls were consenting to get into these situations and these relationships. All right. And it's a business agreement. And if they were deceived, okay, and they didn't get what they wanted or were promised out of the business agreement, then that is a civil case. These girls can take these guys to court, sue them civilly. And if they can't sue them civilly, because the system that they're under doesn't allow for that, well, then maybe that should have been thought about before they got into that work to begin with, right? These are all things that involve personal responsibility and agency. If you're going to be a sex worker, if a girl's going to be a sex worker, I'm not going to tell her, go be a sex worker, right? Like, I'm not here to morally grandstand, okay? But don't put yourself in a position where you're vulnerable, where legally you have no protection. If that's the position you put yourself into where somebody can exploit you financially, don't sign a contract and get into a contractual agreement, which has you giving the person most of the money for a certain amount of time. And it takes sex work out of the picture. We've seen this in the music industry. We've seen this in a lot of industries where we say, well, the individual, the artist was exploited. Well, I mean, no, the artist got into an agreement, and they got into a bad agreement, and they should have had an attorney. They should have had more help. All right. And guess what? Even if they were deceived, or even if the agreement wasn't what they thought it was, then that's a civil matter. All right. Nobody's saying that this particular music group was forced into slavery by their music managers because they had a divisive relationship and because they didn't get what they thought they'd get out of the deal. Like, no one's locking up music managers for being, trafficking these musicians. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, we have no needle or measure for what things are anymore. Everything's got to be so extreme now. Well, this is something you need to be aware of if you're going to navigate the world today, right? You do something. Like I said, I didn't even do anything other than show up on YouTube and talk to you guys and have the business I have and have a pretty girlfriend. I actually have all the things that people want. And so some guy with a mental disorder, probably from another country, freaks out on my social media, gets himself blocked, stalks my girl, stalks her friends, is blocked by all of them and calls the police. And I had police taking it very, very seriously. What's funny is what a number of people had said, including my girl, is they said, how many calls are made, in different reporting actual sexual assault, needing police assistance, and the cops don't even show up, or the cops don't even take it seriously. Why are these people even taking this seriously and then pulling me aside and trying to get me to say like that, anything to make it look like I'm in some sort of bad situation so they could come rescue me. I'll tell you why. I'm a public figure on the internet. That's why. I'm not a public figure like the Tates. They got tons of reach. Most people don't know who I am. Everyone knows who Andrew Tate is. Nobody knows. A lot of people don't know who I am. Okay. But low level, I'm a public figure. Those local cops and those state cops get on the websites. They go into my Instagram. They go, holy shit, this guy has things. He looks masculine. We're going to take him down. That's what it is. And they're looking for any piece of evidence. And I'm sure that legally the definitions are expanded to allow them to do it. You see? And so this is a problem. Okay. This is a problem. The legal system in many places, let's say most places, have turned into a situation where they expand legal definitions to where they can harm you or take you down, especially if it is a situation involving a woman. Okay. They will consider her, because she has a vagina, a vulnerable person, remove her agency, and they can come after you if they want to. That should be very scary and very disconcerting for you guys. Okay. So how do we navigate this? Okay. That's the question. How do we navigate this? How do you navigate this in your life? All right. So some people, this is why I don't make fun of MGTOWs too hard anymore. All right. Because some people go MGTOW. They say, I'm not going to have relationships with women anymore. I'm going to protect myself, period, and not have relationships with women. Now, I don't agree with that as a thing from my own life. And I think that there's a lot of ego protecting and sort of capping from guys who do go that way. And I think that it can stimulate more mental distress and sort of we'll say, disordered thinking. I'm not going to say mental disorder, but just, kind of propagate a bad way of thinking about women in your life. I don't think it's a good way to go. I'm not slamming at the guys who've gone that route, though. It makes sense they've gone that route. When you expand definitions down to the legal sense, where you can get persecuted for hiring a woman. I mean, that's what this says. Understand, hiring a woman, having authority over a woman consensually could mean that you're trafficking in exchange for money. Could mean that you're trafficking. So literally having a woman work for you, you could be told you're trafficking. That is fucking crazy. All right. That's crazy. So when guys are like, I don't hire women, I don't work with women, I don't blah, blah, blah. They take that stance. A lot of women get mad about it. Don't get too mad at the guy. Why don't you get mad at the system? Why don't you get mad at your feminist friends? Okay. That have created this situation that we're in. All right. And all of the loser men that want to qualify to an agenda because they don't have girls touching their pee-pee. So they want to get all the woke girls to touch their pee-pee. And so then they float this agenda. Like literally, these are scarce. These are guys of scarce attractive levels. And the level of simpery is out of control too. Probably a totally different topic. You know what I'm saying? But it's a problem. It's a serious problem. And so how do you navigate this? So the MGTOW would be one way, but I don't recommend it. I don't do that. And I don't think it propagates other problems. You do have a ingrained, natural, primal need to want to mate, right? And to have basically relationships with women. You have that as a primal need. So it's good to do that in a healthy way, right? Generally, people who want happiness, imagine that happiness with them and a girl that they like are in love with, right? And that girl's in love with them. And that's not just some fantasy. That's something that is definitely a reality and can be a reality for you. All right. So like, I don't live my life where I don't have women in my life. That's crazy. All right. To me, that's I understand it, but that's just not going to be a healthy way to go for most people. And I don't recommend it. So if you're going to have women in your life, you're going to hire women, how do you navigate this? Right. Well, navigate it through what consent is and understanding what consent is. I talk about this in my year-long mastermind program. All right. And so look at this one here. My boss once criticized my work effort. That made me very uncomfortable. I felt so vulnerable. I don't know what that is. I think that's a guy. I'm sorry. Maybe I just got trolled in there. Yeah. So, I will I will say again, once if you guys have any questions though, go ahead and put them in that super chat so I can see what you're asking. But so let's navigate. How do we navigate this? The issue is consent. Now I know legally we just looked at the consent apparently doesn't matter depending on where you're at in terms of like whether they can consider you trafficking a girl, right? So even before consent, let's look at this. 2023, I don't recommend making money through the sex industry. That I just don't recommend it. You want to avoid, I'm MGTOW when it comes to not making money in the sex industry. That's my MGTOW. Okay. Like I'm actually good with my girlfriend. I'm actually good with, women in my life, but I don't want to mix business and a sexual dynamic. That is where we cross into, because you understand that the legal world, although you have very, very smart attorneys, the legal world is filled with stupid people who create stupid, low laws that are meant to sort of be understood by the lowest common denominator of society, politicians. Okay. Like these are not high IQ people writing these laws and thinking around these issues. Some are incredibly smart and incredibly talented, but generally speaking, that is not the norm. So when we're talking about regulating stuff and regulating the public, it's always down to the stupidest common denominator. All right. So you're not going to get the nuance. You're not going to get an intelligent, situation when you're dealing with the legal system. All right. And so you got to understand that first off. And then knowing that you want to separate your life with your sexual dynamics from money, from making money, from your business. Okay. If you hire women, that's great. Clear boundaries though, clear treatment, and there's no sexual you're not banging this girl you hired. Okay. That you see what I'm saying? Like, do not cross streams here. As far as hooking up with someone at work, I mean, that's a do at your own risk situation. If you don't own the business, maybe, but that's a do at your own risk situation. And this is really problematic for a lot of people because I know most of you guys are like on the internet. A lot of you guys are on the internet here and, get women and women get men and you guys meet each other through different ways. But statistically speaking, most couples meet at work or in a work circumstance. So most couples hook up at their work. And it's really through social circles, but the highest percentage in that social circle is work. So you're working closely with somebody, or she works down the hall. You guys are talking with each other. You guys go get lunch or whatever, one day. And, that grows into, you guys having sex at lunch, right? And it's totally consensual. Great. This happens. But now you're mixing a sexual dynamic with making money with the workplace. That is already shaky grounds because if she decides to turn on you and say this was exploitive, you're going to find yourself losing your job. Doesn't matter if she's wrong. You will probably find yourself on the opposite end of that if you have a penis. And if you have a vagina, you don't have any agency and you can just say everyone exploits you. And unless a lot of people catch on to it, you're probably fine. It's the world we live in now. Okay. It's the world we live in. So you got to do that at your own risk. If you're the company owner and you take in, Amy from the sales department out for lunch and hooking up with her and banging her, I wouldn't. I know guys do it all the time. I know high value men who own companies do that shit all the time. Wouldn't do it. I would not do that. Why? Because they will consider it. You can be blamed very quickly on having an exploitive relationship. They will remove her agency, even though she consented to be there. If she doesn't like something, whatever happens, maybe she wants to marry you, but really she's doing it through, knocking on your door and getting on her knees. Okay. That's how she starts it off. Maybe she's the aggressor, but she maybe has a mindset of, taking your bag and marrying you because you're the high status company owner. What do you think is going to happen if it doesn't go her way? If she's a healthy girl, it'll be fine. It'll just be a sex situation and, Another girl who banged the boss, right? Girls bang their bosses all the time. They love it. It's like their favorite thing to do. Half of them have guys and husbands at home and they bang their bosses, right? But you get that one off and you're a little off in your vetting process. You get that one you didn't think would screw you over. How would you like to lose your whole empire because of some dumb little girl in a legal system that considers her having no responsibility for herself? That's what we're looking at here, with the Tate situation, potentiality of losing an entire more or less empire and getting thrown in jail for a while over some girls, over some chicks. That's what you want. I would separate those two things. I would not. If you're a company owner, business owner, you got somebody working with you, they'll consider it exploitive. Don't do it. Okay. No matter how consensual it is, her consent won't matter. You know what I mean? And so now let's take that, a step further. Let's look at, what about like the sex trafficking? There's guys. So the big source of blame here was, and the big evidence they're using is stuff from Hustlers University, where they talked about using what the mainstream public calls lover boy game, where they meet a girl, they basically drop game on her and pick up skills on her. They get the girl kind of emotionally and sexually interested in them. They get sexual relationships going and stuff like that. And then they turn the girl into a cam girl. They kind of convinced a girl to do cam girl stuff, right? Is that coercion? I don't think it's coercion. I think that girl has choices and she makes choices too. And she needs to be responsible for her choices. That being said, though, is it good? Well, I mean, I don't know that that's a good thing. And so let's look at that, because you guys who are pickup guys, right? Pickup guys who are going out picking up on girls, you could get social repercussions from some girl saying that you coerced her, right? That she wasn't in consent somehow. You know what I mean? And so, and this is funny. Yeah, this is a good comment. Yeah, like you need to convince a girl to be an OnlyFans 304. Yeah, well, exactly, right? The ones that are going to be, camming already have a mindset about that. I mean, so girls who are listening, do you think that some guy could come in and have a, try to, get you into a sexual relationship and then convince you to do pornography against your will? Against your will, right? What you're going to have for the girls that are listening is it's not going to be much of a maybe on that. It's like either a girl is going to be like, no, I would never do porn, or a girl's like, I would do porn. She's going to be in one of two categories, right? There's plenty of girls who I'm sure told the Tate brothers, I'm not interested in doing cam work. And they went about their life, right? It's the girls who are able to be made interested into that. There's something about them that makes them able to consent to that, would consent to it, you see? But according to the legal definition, though, that's consent isn't enough. They consider them, because they have vaginas, as, being vulnerable. And therefore, any kind of convincing was coercion. Well, this could extend into some pickup artistry and stuff. How about guys who do pickup weekends? A girl goes, I was exploited by this guy, even though I consented to sleeping with him, right? I was exploited because he was picking me up and using pickup skills, and I was vulnerable. When I talk with soldiers, I'm very clear about not getting drunk and having drunk girls around and sleeping with drunk girls, right? Even though girls sleep with dudes when they're drunk all the time. That's girls specifically go out to drink and then hook up with the dude, right? Problem with that is, in this day and age, the line of what we're going to expect a woman to be responsible for is real blurry, you see. And so a girl like gets, has a couple of drinks or whatever, is a little tipsy. I'm not talking blackout drunk for my idiot extreme people who are going to be naysaying, but I'm talking about she gets a little tipsy. He's maybe had a couple of drinks too. They go back to somebody's place. They sleep together. She could say she was coerced and that she was vulnerable because she was drunk. There was a poster going around where it was like the guy and girl were drinking, they slept together, and then, you know, it's, and then something about her being raped, right? Because she didn't have consent. And then, like, the question, you guys can find that meme, I don't know, link it. But it's like, the question is, like, you know, then people are laughing about it. Like, what about the guy? Like, isn't the guy drinking too, right? Like, what? That's okay. That's what it is. That's the world we live in. You can accept it. All right. And you can try to change it, but you can't. You know, you can try to be vocal about it, as I am here, but you can't really change. It is what it is, right? So what do? Don't sleep with drunk girls, right? This is what I mean. Don't do things where the appearance of consent is compromised, all right? Because that's going to be problematic for you. So in my mastermind program, what is the difference? Like, I teach guys next level game. Like, I teach guys how to really get a girl that they're interested in, to find them attractive, to find them desirable, and to find them and to gravitate towards them, and to really have a lot of interest and desire, right? I teach guys how to build a genuine desire in a girl. There has to be a certain amount that's inherently organically there. Okay. But from that, like, if a girl sees you as a 5 out of 10 in a very short period of time, she'll see you as a 10 out of 10 with the skills that I teach guys in my mastermind program. Is that ethical? Some would say, no, that's not ethical. Like, a guy's supposed to be a penis on it should be, a girl walks into a room and naked dudes are, like, in the, like, Matrix style, in a pods, and they can't move or communicate, and their dicks are out, and the girl just goes, I'll pick this penis. All right. And then has sex with that guy. And that's how it should work, where the guy has all, capabilities removed, and he's reduced to a penis in a pod, and she just picks the one that she likes. Right. It's like Tinder, hyper Tinder. Like, that's apparent. They should make a sci-fi show where this happens, because this is what we're going towards. Apparently that's the only thing that's acceptable. If a guy uses any skills of charm or storytelling or communication with a girl, he's already coercing her into sex. It's wrong, right? Of course not. But that is the direction some people are moving. All right. So where do we draw the line? Where is this line between, what's acceptable and what's good? Like, where a girl is consenting to a relationship with a guy, whether it's a short-term sexual one or something more, or where the girl is not in consent. Where do we draw the line? And so this is where I talk about, with game, the difference between persuasion, deception, and manipulation. And I think it's very, very important that we have different definitions to understand this, so you as a guy can learn to navigate the sexual marketplace and navigate the dating market, and do so in a way that's ethical, right? So that not only do you know that you're not doing something that is, not good for the girl, for your own sake of looking in the mirror every single day, but so you also know that you're protecting yourself from problems or harm down the line. All right. And so what constitutes consent? I mean, obviously the legal definition doesn't care about it, which is problematic, but you should care about it, at least, because that's going to be the difference between, not just success or failure in your relationships and dating, but also in protecting yourself later, whether the legal definition specifically cares about it or not. Right. And because we're in a very, very gray area right now. What if a woman coerced me into sex by showing me, is a comment. What if a woman coerced me into sex by showing me cleavage? Isn't that trafficking too? I was emotionally deceived and not able to consent. Yeah, exactly. That is about where we're at, but since you don't have a vagina, unfortunately, you can always have agency. It's the ones with the vaginas that can't have any personal responsibility. We got to remove that from them, because their small woman brains, just can't allow them to properly consent to things. Obviously, for those who want to clip that, make me out to be a bad guy, I don't believe in that at all. But that's the idiocy of where we've gone. We've really gone. Like, you have to understand that woke feminist ideology at this point now is disrespectful to women. All right. It's degrading to women. This is why a lot of women don't like it, dude, because they recognize, like, well, hold on, I'm a person who has a brain and decisions, and I can make my own choices. And basically, these people are telling me that I can't make my own choices. So, you know, if a girl wants to sleep with a dude or whatever and have a couple drinks, that's her choice, right? But we have a system right now that takes away that agency at the volunteerism of the girl involved. Or if we're talking about employment, like sex trafficking, quote unquote, we've expanded the definition of sex trafficking so that even if the girl isn't consenting, because this is what you could have. I mean, you could literally have, understand, Andrew Tate can get thrown in jail for a number of years based on this definition. Even if girls come on the stand and say, you know, this guy's fine. This guy's great. I had a great relationship with him. We had a great, you know, you could have 10 girls come up and consent, demonstrate consent, right? And because 2 girls didn't like them for whatever reason, and really is deciding that there's an opportunity for themselves, they've been caught talking about that, they could get charged here based on that definition. Okay, just understand that. So if they get charged for sex trafficking, if these charges stick, okay, understand that unless they're showing some evidence differently than what they've shown, I mean real evidence, okay, the sex trafficking you're thinking of, which is violent sexual slavery, exploitation using physical violence, coercion, often drugs or substances, being kept against your will, all the things I associate with sex trafficking, that's not what happened. Understand, if they do get charged, they could have simply had employees that were girls. Okay. And that's the charge. And it is that stupid. It has become that stupid. Look, whether you like Andrew Tate or not is not important to me. This is not about, I don't do shows about, I like this person. I had some dumb on Twitter who, you know, doesn't always have a dumb take, but it's like, these guys are just idiots, you know, like he decides to be an idiot. It's like, it's not about who this person is. It's just a very public figure, which allows us to talk about this stuff. It's not about a personal thing here. Okay. It's about what is actually going on. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter whether you like this person or not. I don't care about that. Look at what's going on. And then let's look at what's happening. That's an injustice too. And let's also look how what you need to do to navigate that. All right. That's what's important here. All right. So persuasion, deception, and manipulation. What's the difference? Okay. Well, one is, you know, you want to be truthful. So persuasion is representing the truth, but doing it in such a way where it's, you know, agreeable or enticing to the other person. Okay. So you want to be always in the realm of objective truth. For example, you don't want to like be a pickup guy who says, I'm a surgeon or I'm a doctor or something. And then she finds out that you're a janitor, right? Like, that's not good, right? You just lied. That's problematic. Okay. And so that's when and this is because based on consent here, if we don't understand what this is, couldn't a salesperson then be charged for manipulating you to buy something? Well, how come all salespeople on earth aren't just removed from the planet? What I mean, that would be crazy, right? Salespeople are doing a good service. Yes, and part of that service involves persuasion. There's a lot of things that you've bought that you got persuaded to buy by a salesperson. But what is persuasion? Yes, he was telling you the benefits of something. He was giving you the truth about something and the benefits. Also showing you, you know, some of the part of it is some of the, like the risks or whatever too is part of that persuasion. You know what I mean? And so people make informed decisions. A good salesperson allows you to make an informed decision, but he does it in a persuasive way, right? And so no, you were not manipulated or deceived, okay, when you bought something from a salesperson. Nor are these girls manipulated or deceived by pickup artists who are just using good game. We're not talking about lying. We're not talking about, you know, being deceptive. Now, where it gets into manipulation, that's where we're dealing with truth, but we're we're manipulating the information in a way where it is not honest. Okay. So manipulation is where we get into now some divisiveness. And so when I train guys and teach guys in next level game, okay, it's about persuasion, but it's not about manipulation. And you can accidentally get into manipulation. It happens all the time where guys are just not, they're leaving out information they shouldn't leave out. And then it's like, okay, well, that if I would have presented, like, here's a great example, guys who spin plates. Most of the time, you don't need to sit here and talk about every girl that you're seeing, but most of the time you could be clear that, hey, I'm not getting into a commitment like that right now. Like, I have the option and I date other people. Like, you can be clear about that and still have a casual dating relationship with someone. Okay. Women consent to casual dating relationships, knowing that guys might be dating other people all the time, especially in that begin stage. Some guys feel like they have to kind of be deceptive about that. And they, they won't outright lie, but they will just present information. They try to make it look like look like it's more of a commitment, well, that's wrong. Right. And that's a very common thing that guys do. And they think, well, because they don't know how to navigate that. But see, I'll teach you how to navigate that in my program in a way where the girl is actually, grows more in desire for you, with you, being very clear that, this is the situation. This is the nature of this relationship, which means we're not in a commitment. Right. And the girl will grow in more in desire for you rather than less in desire, wanting to leave that relationship. Okay. Most of the time, right? Because there's a way of presenting that in a way that's both honest, but persuasive, and a way of doing it in such a way where it's not manipulative, where you're kind of leaving out, or, well, let's say altering the truth, but magnifying certain parts of the truth and diminishing other parts of it in order to make it more appealing. It becomes more of a manipulation. Right. And those who want to like criminalize that or go crazy, better do it for women too, because women manipulate all the time. It's like a natural thing that they do. All right. It's just natural, and so people do it all the time. Men and women do manipulation all the time. I teach guys to be persuasive, but also do it in such a way, right, where all of the information's out, like the person is fully in consent. They understand what they're signing up for. Right. That's really important. More important today in 2023 than ever. All right. Now, deception is where you outright lie. Deception is where by my definition, this is where you say, like, outright, like, no, babe, I'm only seeing you. I'm in love with you. I'm not seeing anybody else. And then you have like 2 other girlfriends, right? That's outright deception. Okay. Deception is where you cross the line into non-consent. All right. If you're lying to somebody, okay, and then they're consenting to be in a relationship with you based on a lie, then they are not in consent at that point. And that is where now you've crossed at least an ethical line. Now, apparently the legal system doesn't give a shit, but ethically, though, morally, for yourself and for protecting yourself and for also protecting the woman and for also having just good relationships. You can't build good relationships, even good casual relationships, based on deception and lies. All right. And so you don't want to select a woman who's going to do that. All right. And women do that too all the time. Talk about notch counts. How many women lie about their notch counts? They're not just being manipulative, they're being deceptive. However, pick a girl who isn't, right? Or at least try to build through your frame foster a relationship based on honesty and transparency. That's your job, as a guy, as best as you can. And stay away from the deception, But it is a clear skill set, though, because manipulation can get really tough. How do I get a girl to see my point of view here and realize that it's a benefit to her and me to be in this relationship, even though I'm not following her worldview or current worldview or paradigm of how dating should go, especially considering that women have a paradigm today. Most women, of course, not all women, women are socially conditioned to having a mindset about dating and relationships that is completely broken. So how do you, as a man, for example, have a different set of boundaries and beliefs and values that you present in such a way that the girl understands that and sees that and buys into that frame, wants to be with you? That is a skill set. That is a skill set. It's skill in seduction. It's a skill in game, skill in persuasion. I teach high level persuasion skills in my course. And it's a skill to differentiate persuasion from manipulation and to make sure you're not crossing into manipulation, especially not into deception. So that is how, right? That is how you do that. Now, this isn't going to protect you in the sex industry where women have no agency anymore by legal standards. The woman could consent, and if somebody's after your ass, they're depending on what part of the country, world you live in, they'll have your ass. That's just it. They will remove her agency, and based on their view of the world and women, they will persecute you under the law as if you've been trafficking or in a coercive relationship with some women, right? And so I don't recommend you get into that. I don't recommend you become a cam girl manager. I know you can make a lot of money doing that. There's some guys who do that. I don't recommend it. All right. Not in 2023. I don't recommend you mix your sexual life with your work life. If you are a business owner, I think that you will get in trouble that way. Okay. So these are ways to avoid these pitfalls. All right. These should be obvious, but obviously not for a lot of people. But in your own life, because we may get to, if we're not careful and we're not fighting, at least being vocal about our rights, we may get to a point where even dating women, you could get persecuted as if they're not in consent. We've expanded the definition of trafficking and abuse to not even consider a girl's agency, right? To not care about her agency at all. When they say something like in the legal stuff, okay, the consent of an individual who is victim of trafficking does not represent justifying ground, meaning her consent doesn't matter. When they say that, we're not in a good place right now in the world, are we? So understanding, so you not only can you go to bed at night and wake up and look in the mirror with peace and being proud of who you are, you got to learn game, and you got to learn the skills, and you got to learn how to be a good persuasive person and how to get a good read on somebody and how to make sure that your relationships with women are consensual, right? Because there's, in seduction, women like this gray area. They like the uncertainty. They like the dance and the game. What's going to happen next? Is he going to try to have sex with me, or is he going to kiss me goodnight? Romance novels don't involve a guy showing up with 2 attorneys and a contract. You know what I mean? Let's talk about what your consent is. Do you consent to this date? Right? I mean, it's crazy, right? Women aren't selecting guys in Matrix style pods with their dicks out and going eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Okay. Women don't even want that. They want to be courted. What does being courted mean? Being courted means the excitement of going through this process of a guy demonstrating and showing you his attractiveness, and just that seducing you. Okay. Women want to be seduced. That's what they dream about. This is what's in, all the romance novels ever since we started writing got started. Okay. Was all about courting. What's courting, right? It's not divisive. It's how we mate as human beings. The mating dance. Okay. How do you do that? So you got to take a course like mine. You got to do it for a year. You got to learn the skills, not just how to get the girls, right? But how to do it in such a way where you have such high emotional buy-in from the girl that even if you break up, she's going to protect you because she understands that she consented to the scenario. She was happy with the scenario, at least for a time. And she's going to want to, she cares enough about herself to want to protect you if anyone were to come after you. You know what I'm saying? And so that's a skill set. It's a skill set that you need. All right. And this is what the lesson is. Okay. This is what, so let me look at this real quick. A little not super, but the concept of consent can't be given by a woman makes any interaction with a man as predatory, such a sad world. Yes. So Sarah says the concept that consent can't be given by a woman makes any interaction with a man predatory. Yeah. And it's sad. It is. It is. You guys, like women wonder why guys don't approach. Women are like, there are no good men out there. Well, dude, how are men supposed to be men and be attractive and approach you in the world we live in right now? I mean, they can do it. And again, you guys got to take my program. Links in the description. Click it. You guys need to literally learn these skill sets. What you're going to do naturally as a man, okay, the caveman gorilla version of you will get thrown in fucking jail today. All right. You can't just be that person. You have to know how to navigate. And if you are not very socially aware, dude, you better learn. You better learn some stuff, or you're going to find yourself either not having good relationships with women, which is totally unfair. Okay. Because you could be a great guy and a great option, but your lack of social awareness means you won't talk to women and won't, do what it takes. And then you don't get good relationships with women. And that's bad for women and for guys. Or number two, you will do the dating market in an uncalibrated way and find yourself in fucking trouble. Losing your reputation, losing your livelihood, right? Losing some shit that you have. And that can happen to anybody, dude. That can happen to any of you. Okay. It's real cool for you guys to sit in the comfort of your own home and sort of not, talk about the Tate thing casually, but recognize there's real people involved here. And the real people are not trafficked girls who have been beaten and coerced and mentally and physically abused and drugged. That's not what's happening on that side. But what we do have is a guy who might go to jail or prison, in a Romanian prison for a couple of years at least, for a while. What we do is two people who were put incarcerated without an attorney, without due process for 3 months, just to get released, put on house arrest. I mean, these guys haven't been able to leave their house now in over 6 months. We have real people here being prosecuted, and you guys don't, that's what happens. Well, it's all fun and games at the safety of your computer screen right now. And you guys can, of course, hate on their success. They're millionaires. I don't care if they blah. Oh, well, he was a dickhead on the internet anyway, so I don't care. Whatever your justification is, it's all fun and games until you're the guy that your local police are banging on the door, pulling your girlfriend out, asking questions and trying to make her say that you abused her, trying to cause her to say that through interrogation methods outside of your home. What about when that's you? What about it when it's you that has some girl at work that thinks you're just a little bit too creepy when you were trying to be nice, and then she hits a sexual harassment complaint, and now you're sitting in front of HR trying to explain yourself? How about you, that guy who owns that business and has that hot ass girl you just hired throwing eyes at you, doing this and that and the other, puts herself in your office, sits on your desk. You're a guy. You do what guys do. She ends up sucking you off. She ends up getting with you because she wanted to. And then she turns around and presses charges and says it was a coerced, it was a device. She was coerced into it. Right. And now and then everyone will assume you're a sexual harassing person. Everyone will assume that you sexually assaulted somebody. Even when you're innocent, they'll assume that. You have to pull out all your personal communication, everything you've said, everything you've ever done now. That should be private now. You get to blast that all over the place. Just because some girl decided that she wanted to have some power over you, she had some issue with men, whatever it may be, right? When it's you on the other side of it, okay, you won't be laughing so fucking hard when it happens to somebody else. All right. So take that to heart. Okay. Do the right thing, protect yourself, behave in a way that's self-protective. I could argue that the Tate brothers could have protected themselves better, right? And should have, but so what? Okay, they're human beings. Nobody's perfect. Reality is you got to protect yourself, and you got to be vocal against these things too. Don't just pile on other people, okay? When these injustices are there, if you're not vocal about them, it'll be out of your control, and you'll be the one. You'll be the one who is having your door knocked by law enforcement, or losing your job, or losing your reputation, losing your livelihood over some bullshit because of tyrannical definitions that are designed to harm men nowadays. Tyrannical definitions of abuse, tyrannical definitions of trafficking. Now, I'm still someone who is very interested in, when I stabilize certain things, maybe it'll be a couple years out, I'm still very interested in starting or being a part of a nonprofit organization to fight against sex trafficking, women who are actually captured and abused. It's a horrible thing. And I want to be, I've done some things already, and I won't say on the internet, and I want to be more of a help for that. So I'm somebody who is against these incredibly abusive scenarios against women, against children, against anybody who is, you know, maybe in a position of weakness. I'm very much against that. Okay. But these other things, all right, these things are designed to hurt you. Okay. They're not designed to protect those people. They don't protect. Hurting you, okay, by taking away agency of a woman and saying and coming after you, doesn't protect girls who are being kidnapped right now. All right. And so understand that, be vocal against it. When something happens, it doesn't matter. You can say, I hate this guy, I hate Trump, or I hate Tate, or I hate this person. However, they should not have this allegation, right? You can say that. All right. It's okay. You can act like you have a brain in your head. All right. And not like somebody if that's your choice to not like them, but yes, still defend when there's an injustice. Okay. We need to do that more. All right. We need to be vocal, and we need to fight against injustice, even if we don't like the person who the injustice is against. Okay. And that's my message. Thanks again, guys, for tuning in. Like I said, jam that like button, schedule that appointment if you want to learn how to navigate the sexual marketplace with high level of skill, get what you want with women, but without ending up in a divisive situation yourself. Till next time.